think I just mentioned, just for people that you want to look at not just what's happening in the United States, but globally. Japan is officially in a recession, UK in a recession, Germany in a recession. And if you go back to the 1960s, like the gentleman was saying, the UK and Germany have never been in a recession without the U.S. joining them.
Oh,
just kind of an FYI. That's how globally connected everything is.
Yeah.
And one of the arguments that you hear in the United States all the time is, well, it's impossible for us to have a recession because we've got low unemployment and the stock market is at all-time highs. But if you look at Japan, low unemployment, stock market at all-time highs.
Wow.
UK, Germany, ditto. Stock market at all-time highs, or very close to it, and low unemployment. So that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet.
Does that show that the rich are getting richer and the poor are just staying poor? Is that disparity just widening with those two things going on?
That's one of the you might say it's an intended consequence, but that's one of the knock-on effects for sure.
Okay.
But really, I think in today's day and age where everyone is so hyper-focused on what the central banks are doing, I had a great conversation with my good buddy, he's Macro Alpha on Twitter, but he said, in today's world, bad news is good news until the bad news gets bad enough, and then bad news is bad news. So what he's saying is bad news is good news because, oh my gosh, that means the Fed's going to drop rates.
Yeah.
It's all about rate drops, right? Until the stuff really hits the fan, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so bad, it doesn't even matter what the Fed's doing, it's still crashing. And that's exactly what we saw in March of 2020. It's exactly what we saw in 2008. And the reason I keep saying that is I want to be very, very clear. There are no certainties.
Of course.
All we have is a game of probabilities. So you've just got to look at all the data and say, what's your base case? Is this a 60% probability, 70%? And this is not George Gammon talking. It's just simply the yield curve. So all your viewers have to do is just watch the 2-year Treasury yield, watch the 10-year Treasury yield. Right now, the 2 years higher, that's the inversion of the curve, which almost every single time going back to 1950 has resulted in a recession.
Wow.
So you just have to watch that like a hawk. And when that 2-year Treasury yield drops under the 10-year, it's no longer inverted. That's when you usually have the problems. So
is there a website we can show the people real fast that displays this? Or?
Yeah, you can just pull up a CNBC of each chart, or you can just go to the Fred website, which is the St. Louis Fed. If you just type in
real quick, Bills, and
if you just
I want to give them a visual so they know.
Yeah, if you just type in 10-year, 2-year, FRED, it'll show you the spread on one chart.
10-year, 2-year Fred.
And we'll pull it up here on screen, and George can.
Yeah, so just watch that like a hawk. And another timing mechanism that you can use is watch the dollar on the DXY.
Okay.
Right now it's about 103 or so, and usually what
here?
Is that it?
There you go. Yeah, and you can go back even further.
Okay.
And see, go to in the upper right there. It should say max. You see there you go. Yep. So there you can see what I'm talking about.
Here, we can enlarge it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, you get that inversion, and you see when it doesn't usually hit the fan when it's still inverted. You see that?
Okay.
Because when it goes above that black line, that means it's no longer inverted. When it's below the black line, it's inverted. And then the shaded areas, guys, are recessions.
Ah. Okay. So where we are right now, 2024, we're at where are we at here?
You're at the end.
We're right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We're right around
and
here.
And see how it's uninverting?
Yeah. It's below the black line right now.
But it's still below the black line.
Yeah.
So all you got to do is just watch that. And again, the stuff could hit the fan now, or it could never hit the fan. You don't know. But it's most likely to hit the fan after that curve is no longer
Pull it
inverted.
Back up, Bills? So I guess if we're going to keep it nice and simple for the audience, so like they should be looking at this, and when it's below the black line, what should they be focusing on from a financial standpoint?
Just be careful. You know, if they're in the stock market, I'm not saying sell everything or sell the stock market. I'm not saying it's going to crash and all these things.
Highlight where we're at right now, Bills.
Be careful. Be careful. Like what Kenny's doing right now in his business is he's still looking at deals. But he recognizes the macro implications and the probabilities. So he's not going out there hiring a bunch of employees. He's not getting super, super aggressive.
Gotcha.
He's tightening the belt. He's seeing if he has any redundancies in his staff. And if so, he's taking care of that. He's getting as efficient as possible with the payroll and all of his outgoing expenses. And then he's just going after deals. that he sees a lot of upside.
Okay.
Because he knows that it's all about risk reward.
Okay.
And right now, that risk side of the equation is substantially larger than it would be if the curve was normal and just steep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow.
So if we're below, to keep it simple for the audience, if we're below that black line, guys, be wary of what you put your money into.
Yeah, and again, it's likely not hitting the fan when it's under that black line. So why is that? That's a good topic, because usually what happens is the Fed is behind the curve, and the Fed will start dropping rates because of some sort of crisis or because of a recession, unemployment spiking, something like that. And the Fed dropping the front end of the curve is what makes the curve uninvert. Because remember, you've got the 2-year and you've got the 10-year.
Yeah.
Right now, the 2-year is above. That's very abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So what happens is once we see unemployment...
Can you come closer to the mic just so they can hear you?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Once we see unemployment, as an example, start to go up, let's just say, or we have, let's say, the banking crisis play out. We get into inning 9 of the banking crisis because of commercial real estate, or we see something escalate in the Middle East, or Taiwan, China, something like that.
Ukraine, Russia.
Yeah, and then this impacts the United States. Unemployment rate goes up. Fed comes out and says, holy cow, we got to do something. So we're going to drop interest rates from 5.25% down to, let's say, 2%.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that do? That makes the 2-year Treasury drop below the 10-year Treasury.
Okay.
The curve uninverts, goes above that black line. That's why the stuff usually hits the fan after that, because the result of the uninversion, or the uninversion is a result of the Fed dropping rates as a response to something negative happening.
Wow. Okay. Damn. Okay. Great, man. Guys, like the goddamn video, man. That's all I can say. Whenever we bring George in, I'm always learning.
I'm learning right now.
Yeah, man. Like, sometimes I'll watch your episodes back because I'm like, oh, that was a lot of good information. So I guess we could hit anything else, Bills, before we hit the dollar
I
situation?
thought we had 2 more.
Oh, I know we have